So the other day, a quote from Jon Speed was shared online, and I'm confident this quote was about IVF. And Pastor Jon Speed said this: "There's nothing more pagan than the justification of child sacrifice for the sake of fertility." I'll read that one more time. There's nothing more pagan than the justification of child sacrifice for the sake of fertility. Now, if you know the ancient pagan cultures, one of the things they would do is sacrifice to their pagan gods in order to receive a blessing. And it might seem counterintuitive, but that could include sacrificing a child in order to be blessed with more children. And if that seems strange to us, again, I would challenge you to consider the modern practice of IVF, where thousands, if not millions, of children are sacrificed in order to receive one or multiple children. And I know many people get upset when they hear people like Jon Speed or me or Pastor Matt Kennitzer talk about this stuff. Pastor Matt just did a talk, I think out in Pittsburgh. You can find that talk on Abolish Abortion PA's YouTube page about IVF. So when people hear, I encourage you to check out that message. When people hear those quotes from Jon Speed or a message from Matt Kennitzer on IVF, a lot of them get upset and they remonstrate against the Christian critique of IVF. And I don't think that's the right response. I mean, I think at the very least, we really need to think deeply about this. The issue of technology does make things more complicated, but fundamentally, we're not dealing with anything new here. And that is Jon Speed's point, I believe. For thousands of years ago, people were dealing with the issue of wanting something, wanting children, wanting blessing, and then seeking to achieve that blessing through a means not authorized by God. They wanted a good thing, but perhaps I would submit they wanted it for the wrong reason. And that is what we need to think about. And with all this technology, I mean, I still think that quote from Jurassic Park is correct. And as we now have this story about the dire wolf and trying to mix the genetics of animals and, of course, the whole practice of IVF, it seems like our mentality as a people has been, well, let's just figure out what we can do. Let's not stop and ask what we should do. And of course, that's the lesson from Jurassic Park. But anyway, I digress. There's two kind of practical justifications that people give for IVF, and there's a lot more. And again, I encourage you to check out Jon Speed's work on this, Pastor Matt Kennitzer's, and others. But one of the things you'll hear people say, and I'll just address this briefly, is that, well, I did IVF and I have a wonderful child now, so therefore the practice is justified. That's a classic, the ends justify the means. Of course God can bring about good from evil, right? Of course God can do that, but it's not our place to do that. It's not our place to say, well, since good came from this, therefore I'm justified in doing it. That's certainly not the way we should approach ethics as Christians. That's not the way you come to a decision about whether or not an action is honoring or glorifying to God. So that's the first thing that I think we should dismiss pretty quickly. The second one is, as far as why people would argue for IVF, this is more of an emotional argument, I suppose, but I think we need to consider it, because many people will make this argument, and I've heard them make it. When they hear a quote from Jon Speed, like a quote from someone like Jon Speed talking about IVF, they'll say, well, if it's a woman talking, my husband and I really wanted a child. We really wanted a child. We wanted this. We needed this. And I understand that desire. It's a good desire for children. And you might say, well, Chris, how can you understand? You have children. Well, I have close friends, multiple people I know, Christians who can have children, and they haven't turned to IVF. So they understand. So there's something they really want, and I don't think you could say that they want children less than someone who has gone the IVF route. But I think they recognize that this method of seeking to bring about life is wrought with problems. I mean, you're creating human beings, you're freezing them, they're in limbo. I mean, there are people that have children that are frozen They don't know if they're coming out. I mean, they don't know what's going to happen. They don't know if they're going to be able to be thawed, one, successfully, two, if the parents are even ever going to have the time and chance and opportunity to get to all those embryos. And so it's a very destructive process. Now you can claim, well, I'm going to do it right. And again, I'm not getting into all that here. Check out Jon Speed stuff. Check out Pastor Matt's stuff. But just that argumentation, me, my, we, want, desire, need, all these things. It's presenting parenting as if it exists for the satisfaction of the parents. Now, children are a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful thing for a mother to have a child and for a mother and father to raise their children. That is a good thing. I'm not questioning that. But it's not the highest good, right? And so you can't say, well, anything goes in order to achieve this good. And when you approach it that way, you are making yourself the center of the universe. What I want determines how my ethical decision making. I want a child, and that justifies this action. Now, if parenting were about our desires and parents being satisfied, then maybe that would make a little more sense. But that's not what parenting is about. It's not about parents receiving satisfaction for what they do. That's a byproduct. That's not the prime product. The job of parents is to serve. Their children are given to them not as their possession, but parents are to be stewards of these people that God has given you. You don't become a parent in order to fulfill your own desires. You become a parent in order to honor God and serve others. Therefore, that should give you pause if you're going to make the argument that, well, I just want a child because I really want one. And therefore, you don't understand the desperation of not being able to have a child. And I really want a child, so, I'm doing IVF. That's not the way we should think about ethical decisions as Christians. That's not the way we should determine what actions we're going to take simply based on what we want. So you'll see that. Keep your eye out for that. And pray for those people that can't have children. Pray that they would find their satisfaction in trusting a sovereign God, and that they would not take matters into their own hands to the degree that they would get involved in a practice that is at best, wrought with ethical and moral dilemmas, at best. In fact, I encourage you, if you haven't read R.C. Sproul's book on abortion, there's an appendix in there that deals with IVF, and it's a fascinating appendix. I encourage you to read that and give this some thought. So, I think Jon Speed's quote is right. You're justifying with IVF, you're as a practice, you're justifying the expenditure of human life one way or another for the sake of a child. And that's not the way that God designed life to come about. I know people could say, well, yeah, but God's given us technology, let's use it. There has to be a limit to that. There has to be, or else anything goes, and we can justify pretty much anything, and that's not the route we want to go. So the solution, I think, at the heart level, as it is with so many things in the Christian life, is to die to self. We do not exist in order to, our needs, our desires to be met. Okay? We exist to serve. And so if you can't have children, do not go the IVF route. Now, I know people who have done IVF, snowflake adoption. That's another category, because someone else has created those humans, if you will, and now they're just stuck in frozen limbo, and people are going in there and rescuing them. That's another category. Now, that's challenging as well, but don't go the route of creating a bunch of embryos and freezing them. Go before the Lord, ask Him to help you understand that your purpose here is not to have all your desires met. It's not for you to have all your dreams fulfilled, but to serve others. And if you do that, I believe the Lord will bless you, and you will have great joy in whatever it is that He has for you. All right, take care.